Hey friends, what up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Chafei, Daf 25 of Masechta Beitzah. So kind of the first Amud kind of continues talking about trapping like animals and that kind of stuff, fish, things like that. And then the next part of the Daf. So it's interesting. We kind of get into this question of Hevshev Nituach. It's a new Mishnah. We get into this question about eating meat of an animal. Do you have to kind of first kind of strip the skin and cut it up into pieces and stuff, or not? So that's kind of an interesting question, right? And then some interesting kind of Agadata stuff on Chaf Hamud Bey. So really some interesting things over here. Let us get started. We're going to start in Daf Chafei Umar Aleph, 2 lines from the top. Friends, tell me when you're ready. Amar Rabbi Bar Hufuna Omer Rav Givaldig. So it says Rabbi Bar Hufuna in the name of Rav. Oh, by the way, there's a lot of people upstairs. They're making a lot of noise. So if you hear a lot of noise coming from upstairs, it's because of that. That's what's up. Hasocher Amas Hamayim Me'erev Yom Tov Givaldig. So if a fellow on Erev Yom Tov, he blocks up this water, I imagine some kind of pond of sorts, basically has some kind of water situation, and he closes it up so that whatever's in there is in there, lemaise, nothing else is getting in there. Okay, so so it's essentially trapping it, right? It's basically trapping whatever fish are going to be there. So then if the next morning he wakes up and he finds that there are fish in there, so those fish are already considered trapped from Erev Yom Tov, and he could chaperan. Omer Rav Chizde, says Rav Chizde, Midiv Rabbeinu nilmod. So we'll learn from Rabbeinu. Who's Rabbeinu? Rav, of course. Chayeshakoninam befardes, that if you have a undomesticated animal that essentially gave birth in some kind of orchard, Eina tzricha zimun. So you don't need to set it aside or anything to be able to kill it and eat it, because it's basically considered trapped. Where's it going to go, right? It's an itty bitty baby that was just born, right? So there's some interesting stuff going on over here. Boom. Okay, door slam number 1. I imagine in this episode we'll probably have a few of those. So 2. Okay. Yeah, so far 2. So we had some interesting stuff already. So let's start again. Sorry. So basically, Rabbi Bar Hufuna says the name of Rab, that if you have these fish and you trap them from Erev Yom Tov, so they're already considered trapped. Now, this is super interesting. Why is it super interesting? Because I'll explain why. It says Rav Chizda Midiv Rabbeinu, that from Rabbeinu. Who's Rabbeinu? Rabbeinu is Rav. Okay? So now let's extrapolate from that and extend it to say that, well, if a undomesticated animal gives birth, like in this kind of area that you've sealed off for it, 3 times. So, door slam 3 times. And it gives birth in this area that you kind of sealed off for it. So then we said that, just like the fish that you've kind of sealed off, so also this animal would be considered trapped and you'd be allowed to chaperein. Fine. What's interesting about this is that, let's actually go weiter for a second. So Amar of Nachman, says of Nachman, Nofel Chavrin, our friend, he fell b'Rav Ravasa. He's basically getting himself involved in a very hairy kind of situation in a machlokes. Now what's interesting to me is, the history kind of stuff. Because, there's an interesting Rashi here that says, Midiv Rabbeinu. So Rav, okay, to Shloshtan, because all 3 of them, Rav Huna, Rav Chizda, Rav Nachman, and Rav Chizda as well as Rav Nachman, the Karle Rav Chizda Chavrin, who are calling Rav Chizda like their friend, that our friend has, get himself into a hairy situation. Talmidim shel Rav Hava, they were all students of Rav, which is super interesting, because we saw in the Gemara in Eruvin that Rav Chizda was taka, a student of Rav Huna. So it's always hard for me to place Rav Chisda a little bit, because on the one hand we see he's a student of Rav Huna, so I would think that he was kind of like younger, not exactly a student of Rav. I know we also have the Gemara in Shabbos, I think on Daf Yud, where Rav Chisda, who was a Kohen, would sort of offer his matnas kahuna to whoever could tell him a Geshmak Vart from Rav. So we see that he very much loved, Rav and his teachings and things like that. But I viewed him as sort of like almost like the next generation. Like Rav Huna was certainly a student of Rav, as was Rav Nachman and Rav Yehuda. But I kind of viewed Rav Chisda as like a student of Rav Huna. But it's interesting to see Rashi say that no, Rav Huna and Rav Chisda and Rav Nachman were all students of Rav, as if they were contemporaries. I didn't assume that it was like that. So that's very, very interesting to me. Very, very interesting to me. Anyways, fine. So Amar Rav Nachman says Rav Nachman Nafal Chavim Rav Avasa. So our friend Rav Chisda, who basically extrapolated from the fact that Rav said that if you have these fish in the enclosure that you sealed off from before Yom Tov, so you can chop around from the fish. So then also if you have these undomesticated animals that give birth in these specific areas, so then that was 4 times I think already. So then they would be considered already trapped. And says Rav Nachman that Rav Chisda, by making that extrapolation, that extension, is getting himself involved in the machlokas. Ikadamar, to those who say, Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna, Rabba bar Rav Huna, we did Rabbeinu Nilmod, that from, it says Rabba bar Rav Huna, Rabba, the son of Rav Huna, who is a student of Rav, says that Midiv Rabbeinu, from Rav, will learn that again, if you have a undomesticated animal that gave birth in a orchard, Eina Tzricha Zimun, you don't need to set it aside, just like you don't have to set aside the fish. Rav Nachman, it says Rav Nachman, Nafal bar Chavrin, the son of our contemporary, because Rav Huna was a contemporary, this is Rabba bar Rav Huna, so the son of our contemporary. I think this is super interesting. He's getting involved, Rav Ravasa, in like a big hairy machlokas. How come? Because Hosom Loka Ovid Maisa, that there is differences between the fish and the undomesticated animals giving birth. What's the difference? The difference is that Hosom Loka Ovid Maisa, when it comes to the undomesticated animal giving birth in this orchard, so he's not doing anything in order to indicate and show that he's sort of setting aside this baby. Whereas when it comes to the fish, in this sort of pond that you're blocking off, you're doing something to actually show and to indicate, like, hey, I want these fish. So it's taka different, says Rav Nachman. V'lo ba yazimun v'atanya. And the Gemara says, so how can we say that, after all, how can we say that this undomesticated animal that gives birth in this orchard doesn't, so the baby doesn't require setting aside? But we learn in a Beitzah, if you have this undomesticated animal that gives birth in this orchard, it tafka needs zimun. So how could we say that how could Rav Chisda say that it doesn't? And this bird that lives sort of wherever it wants, that it doesn't accept authority, so you have to tie its wings if you want to set it aside, so you don't confuse it with its mother. And this is testimony that they testified from Shmai and Avtalyun, who were the Rebbeim of Hillel, maybe Shammai as well, but they were the Zugas before Hillel and Shammai. Definitely a Rebbeim of Hillel, as we saw in the Gemara in Yoma and Daf Lamed Amud Beis, that Hillel, was kind of froze on a snowy day in the skylight of Shmai and Avtalyun's Beis HaMedrash. So we see from there that Taka, when you have a baby that is born in this orchard, you do need to set it aside. So how can Rav Chisda say that you don't? But 1 second, fact the Gemara, does it in fact need setting aside? Says Reb Shimon ben Elazar, Modim Beishamai V'Sila, that Beishamai and V'Sila agree al she'ezminon b'socha kein u'motzo lifnei kein. Okay, going back to the fegelas, going back to the birds from the first parak, that if you had set aside birds, right, you had 2 dovecotes, one on top of the other, and you had set aside the birds on, let's say, the top one, and inside of the dovecote, and you didn't set aside the ones on the bottom one, and now you find the birds on the top one where you set them aside, but they're outside. So Shasurin, that you're not allowed to use these birds because you have to be concerned that they came from the bottom one. When do we say this? Bionei shavach, bionei aliyah. That's specifically by doves of dovecotes and doves of attics, and birds that nested in jars in mansions. Okay, but when it comes to geese and chickens and doves, like Herodian doves, and undomesticated animal that basically gives birth in an orchard, mutar, they're taka allowed, and you don't need to set them aside. So 1 second. So we had a Beitzah a second ago that says that when it comes to chaya shekonan b'fardes, you do need to set it aside, but now we're saying that you don't need to set it aside, essentially like Rav Chizda was saying. And by this tzipor dror, you need to tie its wing so that it doesn't get mixed up with its mother. If you have birds that are tied, and if they are picked up already from before Yom Tov, in pits and in houses and in ditches and in caves, mutarin, they are allowed, I guess, on Yom Tov. Vilanos asurin, but if they're in trees, then I guess they're not allowed. You're not allowed to chaparayin shamiyah levitlosh, lest you come and take something down from the tree. Okay, and in general, if you see a bird that was tied, had this like tie on its wing, or you saw somebody already pick it up before Yom Tov to indicate that it was his, so then you can't chaparayin because it would be stealing somebody else's bird. Rav Nachman says, Rav Nachman lo kasha. So the answers of Nachman, it's no problem. Meaning, we had one Beitzah that says that when the undomesticated animal gives birth in the orchard, you are not allowed to chaparayin. We have another Beitzah that says you are allowed to chaparayin. Says of Nachman, it's no problem. So it depends. If it's the baby that like can't really move so much, then you could chaparayin. The mother, you can't chaparayin. Ima b'zimun sagila. But 1 second. The Beitzah that said, that the first Beitzah said that when it comes to these, this chaya shekanana bepardes, with this undomesticated animal, it says, what do you have to do? You have to set it aside. But the mother, is it enough to just set it aside? See the ma'al yusabayu. You actually have to trap it. It's not enough just to set it aside. No, they're both talking about the little baby. It depends if it's in a place that's close to the city or if it's far away from the city. If it's close to the city, then you know about this baby that's going to be born and you're thinking about it, so it doesn't require setting aside. And if it's far away, so then it requires setting aside. Okay, sounds like fun times. It says the new Mishnah, Behema misukenes. So let's say you have an animal that is in danger, and you want to be able to kill it and eat it before it dies on its own, because if it dies on its own, so then you're going to lose your animal. And if you're planning to eat that animal, you want to eat it and not lose it. So if you have an animal that's endangered and you're worried that it's going to die, but there's a problem. The problem is you already ate your Yom Tov Suda. So basically, why are you going to be killing this animal? It's not to eat it. You already ate your Yom Tov Suda. And if you already ate your Yom Tov Suda, so then, why should you be allowed to slaughter this animal? So lo yishchot elam ken yeshoz bayom lecho mimena ksayis tzali. So the only way you'll be able to slaughter this animal is if there's enough time left in the day that you'll be able to roast a kazayas of meat. If you could roast a kazayas of meat, so then what? So then already it's considered like there's enough time, so it's considered like you'll be able to use it on Yom Tov, and you can go ahead and slaughter it. Even if you can just chop some raw meat from the neck where you slaughtered it, kilu, you don't even have to skin it, you don't have to process it in any way. If there's enough time for you to slaughter the animal right now, chop a kazayis of meat of raw meat from the neck, kilu, readily available, that's already enough, and you'll be able to slaughter the animal. Okay, fine. If you slaughter the animal in a field, don't bring it into the city with like a pole and a litter. I don't know what a litter is, Dennis. Aval maybe biyado ivarim ivarim, but you can cut it up in the field and then bring it into town one limb at a time. Now that sounds interesting. Well, interesting. What if you saw that? What if you were somewhere and you see some guy walking into town with just parts of a slaughtered animal? Would that be weird? I feel like it. I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. Maybe not as weird as some other things. All right, let's go weiter. Says the Gemara, Omer Rami bar Abba, Givaldik. Says Rami bar Abba, Hefshit v'nituach be'ola v'uhadin l'katzabim. Friends, you hear that? When it comes to korban ola, a korban that goes entirely on the mizbech, so it says you have to do hefshit v'nituach. You have to remove the hide, right? When it comes to korban ola, you remove the hide. I think l'maiseh, I think the kohanim get the hide. I think so. I think you remove the hide and the kohanim get it. I think. Anyways, you remove the hide and you cut it up into pieces and you burn it. And lemaise, the same thing is for butchers, that you shouldn't just slaughter an animal and start eating it immediately. You have to first, don't just start chopping around immediately. Slaughter it and then remove the skin. Don't rush, right? And it says, Mikan lim the Torah derech eretz. The Torah is teaching you how to be civilized. Don't slaughter an animal and immediately start chopping around. Slaughter the animal, process it properly, not that, and then eat like human beings. That a fellow shouldn't eat meat before you've removed the skin and cut it up into pieces. My kamashmalan. Okay, so now the Gemara wants to know what exactly is Rami bar Abba teaching us. So is he in fact saying, like I just suggested, that he's just saying, look, be civilized people? But it's not necessarily a halacha. I mean, if you wanted to be, an uncivilized fellow and just slaughter the animal and chop arayin immediately, so maybe that necessarily wouldn't necessarily be against halacha. Maybe it wouldn't be very nice. It wouldn't be very civilized, but it might not necessarily be against halacha. Or are we saying that no, that this is mamish to halacha, that you have to do this when you slaughter an animal? You remove the skin, you cut it up into pieces, and only then can you enjoy it. So that's what we're asking. All right. So my kamashmalan. So now ilema, if we're going to say lafuki midrafuna, if we're going to say that it's lehalacha, the halacha is that you have to remove the hide and cut up the animal into pieces, and only then are you allowed to eat it, and only then are you allowed to eat it, not before then, because after all, you have to check to make sure that there's no treifas. Yes, you have to make sure it's not a treifa. Because what happens if you slaughter the animal and it turns out it's a treifa and you already chapped the rein, you ate treif meat. So therefore, maybe what Rami bar Abba is saying is that after you slaughter an animal, the halacha is you have to remove the hide, you have to cut it up into pieces and ascertain that it's not a treifa, it's not an animal that has some kind of a disease or some kind of problem that would cause it to die within 12 months. To the exclusion of Rafuna, right, the opposite of Rafuna, the Rafuna said that an animal, when it's alive, bechezkas isser omedes. So when the animal is alive, so it's bechezkas isser ever minachai, right? As long as it's alive, it's also, you can't chop around from an animal when it's alive. You have to kill it first. Sorry. So the animal, when it's alive, it's bechezkas isser. You can't right now eat it, because that would be ever minachai. Until you know for sure that it was slaughtered le'alacha, that it was slaughtered properly. Until then, it has a chezkas iser, and if you're not sure if the shechita was proper or not, so then you have to go by the chazaka, which is that it's osir. Once you know for sure that it was slaughtered in a kosher way, nishchita bechezkas heter omedes. And says Rafuna, once now the animal was slaughtered, and you know that it was slaughtered al pi halacha, so in terms of the meat itself, the meat is now mutter. You don't have to be concerned about treifas. Until you can ascertain it is in fact a treifa. But until you know for sure it's a treifa, you can assume that it is that it is kosher. So what do we see? So we see that you don't, after you slaughter the animal, you don't need to first, remove the hide and cut it up into pieces so that you can be sure that it is in fact not a treifa, and then you can eat it. According to Rav Huna, immediately after you slaughter it, we can assume that it's kosher. You don't have to do hefshet v'nituach. So if you want to say that what Rami bar Abba is saying is that he's disagreeing with Rav Huna, and he's saying that no, in fact, you do have to do hefshet v'nituach, and you do have to ascertain that it is in fact not a treifa. But that's going to be hard to argue that Rami bar Abba is arguing on Rav Huna, because our Mishnah seems to imply like that, right, that Rav Huna is correct. The Tanan that we learn in our Mishnah, Rabbi Akiva says that when you have this animal that's in danger and you want to kill it to take it, so it doesn't die on its own and then it's too late. So the Tanakama had said that there has to be enough time to roast a kazayas of meat. Rabbi Akiva says no, you can even chaparayin immediately. So from the fact that apparently it's okay to chaparayin immediately, so it seems to be like Rav Huna and against what we're alleging would theoretically be Rami bar Abba's opinion, which is that you have to do hefshet v'nituach first. Well, our Mishnah doesn't seem to be assuming that way, and that's a pretty big deal. If Rami bar Abba is an Amora, we have a Mishnah assuming not like him. My lav, mi beis tvichoso mamish. And mistome, what does it mean to chaparayin a kazayis of meat from the neck? It means, that's exactly what it means, from the neck, meaning based tfichasa, from the neck. Kilu, you don't have to do hefshet v'nituach, just immediately where you made the incision, chap a shtickle basar. So says the Gemara, no, it doesn't necessarily mean from the place where the incision was made, but rather it means from where the animal slaughters what it eats, i.e. its stomach, where it like digests it and what's that called? Digest it? Maybe, I guess. Metabolizes it? I don't know. Breaks it down? Digest it? Yeah, I feel like digest is probably the word. I don't know. Whatever. Let's go weiter. So you can answer that no. What it means, what Rabbi Akiva is saying is from the, you can even take some meat from the base tfichos. It means the stomach, i.e. you have to remove the hide and you have to cut it up into pieces, and only at that point can you chaparayin. But one second. Don't say that, because Reb Chia Taka teaches it means the makom tvichasa. Mamish means the place where the incision was made. It means the neck, which means that you can chaparayin immediately. In which case it would be hard to say that Rami bar Abba is saying that you have to first cut it up into pieces and remove the hide. Doesn't seem to be the case. Our Mishnah seems to be assuming you can just chaparayin from the neck immediately. El Rami bar Abba or Achara Kamash Malon. Rather, Rami bar Abba is just teaching derech eretz. He's teaching how to be a mensch. Yes, technically speaking, you could slaughter an animal and chaparayin immediately. But Rami bar Abba is saying, wait a shtickle, be a mensch. And Kiddatanis, we learn in a Beitzah, lo yochal adam shum uvatzum birosho elamei olav. I don't know, a fellow, if he eats onions or garlic, he shouldn't eat it from, the head of it, rather from the leaves. Alright, sounds nice. If you eat it from the head, don't we usually eat the head of garlic? I don't know. Maybe it means to pick it first or something. And if you eat the head, so then it's you're a glutton. Meaning, so we're saying don't be a glutton, right? And similarly, Kamar that we learned, I believe, in Masechta Pesachim. Don't drink, if you have a cup of epis, don't drink it all in one gulp, because if you do, you're a gargrin. I don't know what that is, but it doesn't sound nice. If you drink your cup in one go, you're a gargrin. Shnaim derech eretz, two gulps, that's already, that's really the ideal. Shloshim gasei ruach, but 3 gulps, then already, who is this guy think he is? 3 gulps in a cup? What, he doesn't have anything to do, he could sit there and drink in 3 gulps? That's already a haughty fellow. 2 gulps, and that's it. Got it? Good. Friends, let's move on. From Rami bar Abba, says Rami bar Abba, Chatzuva, Mekateh Ragleim D'Rishi'aya. So there's a certain Chatzuva plant that its roots go straight down into the ground. They don't extend outward in any direction. They go straight down into the ground, and it's good for identifying different boundaries of land, because, it can create a straight divider without going into anybody's land. So this chatzuva bush tree thing, so it basically undermines the nudniks. Meaning, if you have a nudnik that he's trying to chop some extra land from his neighbor, so we have this plant that doesn't chop anything from next to it. It only goes straight down. And we look at the plant and we say, you see, this plant goes straight down. Mr. Nudnik, why can't you just be straight also? Okay, sounds very nice. Netiya mikatei raglim de katzbaya, and orla, right? Kilu, when you plant a tree, for the first 3 years it's orla. You don't eat it immediately. You wait. You be patient. So that sort of undermines the butcher's, i.e., meaning if you have somebody who slaughters meat and immediately chaps arayin without waiting for hefshep v'nituach, we say, why can't you just wait? Just like orla. With the bayale nidos, or a fellow who sleeps with a nida, it's like, hey, wait. Tormusa mikatei raglim d'sonein shel Yisrael. And tormusa, which is this bean, we've seen it before, I think on 2 occasions, Masechta Shabbos, Masechta Brachos. It's this bean that is initially very bitter, and you boil it 7 times, a whole big schlep. But afterwards, it's very sweet, and it actually becomes a dessert. So mikatei raglim d'sonein shel Yisrael, so that actually undermines the yidden. In what way? Shenemar, the pasuk says, "Vayosifu b'nei Yisrael asu sarah b'nei Hashem," that the yidden were being nudniks. Vayavdu es habaylim, and they served the avodah zarah of Baal, v'esa Ashtaros, and the avodah zarah of Ashtaros, v'esaloi Aram, and the gods of Aram, v'esaloi Tzidon, the gods of Tzidon, v'esaloi Moab, the gods of Moab, v'esaloi b'nei Ammon, and the gods of Ammon, v'esaloi Plishtim, and the gods of Plishtim. Basically all the other gods. Vayazvu es Hashem, they abandoned the Eibishter, v'lo avdu, and they didn't serve him. Mimash Mashnema vayazvu es Hashem in Yodeh shelo avdu. And the fact that it says that they abandoned God doesn't mean memela that they didn't serve him. They abandoned him. Umat hamalom v'lo avdu. So what does it mean that they didn't serve him? Amr Belazar. Says Belazar, Amr HaKadosh Baruch Hu, says the Eibishter. Afilu keturmus hazeh, even like this turmus, that while sure, sheshol kanoso sheva paimim, sure, it takes a little bit of massaging, a lot of work, a whole process, a whole journey. You have to boil it 7 times. But ve'ochlan also b'kinuach suda, at least at the end, it becomes sweet. You can eat it as a dessert. Lo asauni bonai, but my, what was that, 4 door slams, 5 door slams, I can't remember anymore. Lo asauni bonai, but my children, the Yidden, didn't even make me like this turmus bean, because they served, meaning just like a bean that you have to boil 7 times, they served 7 different avodah zarah getchkes, and it's not like there's a happy ending. They just left me. Oy vavoy. Tana Mishmei, the Rav Meir. It was taught in the name of Rav Meir. Alright. Nitna Torah Yisrael. How come the Torah was given to the Yidden? Mipnei she'en azin, because they're very brazen. This is gewaldig. Well, maybe. It says Rashi she'en azin v'nitna loyim Torah she'yaisku ba v'mateshes kocham u'mechanas libam. Oh, so the Eibishter gave the Yidden the Torah so that they will be osik b'Torah, like we do at Babylon Talmud, and it makes us weaker, and it makes us more humble. Okay, makes us weaker, makes us more humble. All right. So because the Yidden are so brazen, so we have the Torah as to kind of chill us out a little bit. Friends, remember, it's the festival of Sukkot is coming up. We learned an interesting Mishnah, another door slam. I am losing track, maybe 6 already. Let's go with 5. Let's be moderate. So Masechta Sukkah, we said that mitzvah patur min sukkah, a fellow who's in uncomfortable, so he's patur from a sukkah. And we said that therefore, if you're learning Gemara be'iyun, you can learn that outside of the sukkah because you're mitzvah, because you're learning Gemara and it's deep and it's difficult and it's painful, it's uncomfortable. So you're patur from learning that in the sukkah. All right. Anyway, it's very interesting to see that the Yidden are very strong and brazen, so therefore the Eibishter gives us the Torah to kind of chill us out. That from the right of the Eibishter is this fire. That these people, we should give them a shtickle fire. Alright. What do you want me to tell you? Alright. Wait, did I skip anything? No. Alright. You could argue those are saying Dasem Shal Elu Eish. Those are that these people are kind of very fiery. That if not for the fact that the Torah was given to the Yidden to kind of chill us out, no nation would be able to stand in our way. So the Torah, by chilling us out, makes us not be like what's that called? Not violent, but I don't know. I can't remember what the word is. Aggressive, maybe. This is what Rish Lakish says. Gimel Azinhein. There are three that are brazen. Yisrael b'umis, the Yidden among the nations. Wow. Kelev b'chayis, a dog among the animals. Tanago b'ofis, a chicken by the office, by the birds. V'yeshom af eiz b'behemoth, those who say even goats among animals. Behemothaka, by sort of the behemothas, like sheep and stuff, and goats. So the goats are the most brazen. V'yeshom af tzolof b'ilanus, for those who say even solof, the caper bush, by the trees. Alright, sounds like fun. Okay, so the Gemara, so the Mishnah had said that if you slaughter an animal in the field, don't bring it in on like a spit, on like a pole, because that would be like the way that you do it during the week. It's not like a very Yom Tov thing to bring in an animal on a pole. So therefore, 1 second, friends, here comes my father. Dad, come, say hi. Say hi. Here's good. Bring your props. Oh, we're talking about a pole. Come, bring the pole. Talking about bringing a animal on a pole. Maybe bring the bag on the pole, and it'll be like the animal.
Maybe not, and we'll let everybody use their imagination.
Oh wait, no, 1 second. You should probably get out of here. All right, okay. I'll see ya. Bye. Oh wait, 1 second. Maybe I will pause at this point. 1 second, and we're back. So don't bring in the animals on the poles because it's not like a Yom Tov ticket thing. Okay. So says the Gemara, Tanarabban, the Rabbi taught, in a suma yotze b'maklo, so a blind fellow doesn't go out with his stick. V'laroy b'tarmilo, a shepherd doesn't go out with his pouch. All right. Vein yotzim b'kisei, and we don't go out with a chair, okay? Don't carry, you don't go out, we don't carry people, we don't take people out in chairs, okay? Now this applies to men and women. We don't bring them out in chairs, alright? Sounds fun. Ini, is this really true? Vashalach Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi, but Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi sent, okay? There was a certain elderly fellow in our neighborhood, but Glud kishalo, he would go out, talk in his chair. Uvav v'shalu Rabbi Shua ben Levi, and they asked Rabbi Shua ben Levi. V'amar, he says, look, in Rabban tzrichin, if they need him, he's a rabbi and they need him, so mutters, and it's okay. And also the rabbis relied upon Achishakya, the Amr, who said, Ona afikte l'Rav Huna mehine l'shile mishile lehine. That says Achishakya, that he took out Rav Huna from Hine to Shile, and from Shile to Hine. From Rav Nachman bar Yitzchok, it says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchok, on Afikti l'mar Shmuel, I took out Shmuel, mi Shimsha l'tulu mitulu l'Shimsha, from the sun to the shade, and from the shade to the sun. So, Kilu, what's the dealio? Can you take out the people in the chairs? Can you not? It's because, as we said, if people need them, so that if people, need you to be able to take the people out, so then it's permitted. Rav Nachman Chama bar Ado, Shliach Tzion, says Rav Nachman Chama bar Ado, the messenger of Zion, that he would often go to Eretz Yisrael. Kisolaktel, also when you go there into Eretz Yisrael, Akiv v'zil asulma d'tzur, do me a favor and go to the Sulma d'tzur. I don't know, these places, I think this mountainous kind of area at the north of Eretz Yisrael, I think. V'zil legabed de Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi, and go to Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi, v'amini, and ask him, Kisei ma'atun bei. What's the deal with the chairs? Do you go out with them? Do you not go out with them? And while Chama bar Ado Shliach Tzion was on his way to Eretz Yisrael, already Rav Yaakov bar Idi passed away. Kisolik. And when he went to Eretz Yisrael, Ashkechei, the Zrika. So he found the Zrika, Amrle Kise Ma'atun Bey, and he says, no, so what do you do about these chairs? Amrle Ach Yomer Ba'ami. This is what Ba'ami said, Vavachli Yichatev, as long as you don't put it on your shoulders. Umay Vavachli Yichatev, what does it mean as long as you don't put it on your shoulders? Rav Yosef Breit Rav Ba'alunki. It says of Yosef Breit Rav that we're talking about that you put like one hand on your friend's shoulder and your friend would put his hand on your shoulder, and then they would put like a chair on top of that, and they would carry people around like that, and it was really fun. Ini, is this really true? Rav Nachman Sharala Liyalta Lemefak Ma'alunki. But one second, when that's not allowed, I thought Rav Nachman allowed his wife Yalta to go out in an alunki. Shani Yalta de Beitzah. Yalta was scared that, I don't know, maybe if she would walk, she would get, I don't know, or scared of something, so that she was allowed to go out in this alunki. Alunki. Ooh, what's this like? That's definitely 6 slams, no? So. Amemar Marzutra Mechatfelu b'Shabbat derigla. Amemar Marzutra, they would carry them also on their shoulders on the Shabbos by the Shalosh Regalim, so that they can give the shir. Mishum bi'asusa, because they were scared of something. Va'amrila mishum duchka detzibur, or some say because they didn't want to make everybody stand up for them. So if they just kind of came in, I guess sitting on people's shoulders, I guess they wouldn't have to make everybody stand. All right, that sounds very nice, friends. That was Daf Chofei of Masechta Beis. So the first part of the daf kind of started out with talking about these like ponds of like fish, that if you close it off, so then you could chaparine from the fish. Now, Rav Chizda had then said that, well then, or so it was a question for sort of Rav Chizda or Rav Bar Hufuna, that then let's also extend this to undomesticated animals giving birth in these like enclosed areas, that it's already considered like you don't have to set it aside. So we had an interesting thing with the word of Nachman that considered Rav Chizda to be a contemporary of him and Rav Huna. I thought that was interesting. And we said that actually the fact of the matter is, when it comes to the undomesticated animal giving birth in this pardes, in this orchard, so it depends. We're talking about the child, the baby that's born, and if it's close to the cities, then you're thinking about the baby, and it's considered already set aside. And considered trapped because there's nowhere it can go. It's a baby. And if it's outside, if it's far away from the city, or so if it's close to the city, then it's considered, set aside. And if it's far away from the city, then it's not, you're not really thinking about it, and it's not going to be considered set aside. Then we got to this new Mishnah where we said that if you have an animal that is in danger of dying, so then you can slaughter it as long as there's enough time to roast a kazayas of meat. Rabbi Kiva says you could just take from the just raw meat from the neck. And we had an interesting sort of statement of Rami Bar Abba who says that after you slaughter an animal, you should remove the hide and cut it up into pieces. And the question is, what does that mean exactly? Is he saying that you have to cut it up into pieces and remove the hide in order to first make sure that there's no trephis? Or is it like Rav Huna says that no, once you slaughter the animal, you can assume that it is not a treifa. We basically proved from our Mishnah, from the fact that Rabbi Akiva says you can just take raw meat from the neck directly, technically speaking, in order to be able to slaughter this animal on Yom Tov. So we see that you don't first have to do hefsher v'nituach in order to ascertain that it's not a treifa. And so when Rami Bar Abba says that you should do hefsher v'nituach, it means that you should cut it up into pieces and remove the hide. It means that it's just good advice, to be kind of menschlich and not to just jump after the meat immediately. Okay, I think that those are really kind of the main sugyas today on today's daf. I hope you enjoyed Daf Chafei of Masechta Beitzah. Have a great day. Cheers.